Dr. Zara Chen pressed her trembling fingers against the communication console, watching the alien script flash across her screen in desperate patterns. The research station orbiting Kepler 442b had been her prison for 18 months now, ever since the Vorthak Empire had swept through this sector like a cosmic plague, enslaving every species they encountered. The laboratory around her bore the scars of her captivity. Broken equipment lay scattered across metal floors, and the walls were scorched from energy weapons. Her once pristine research facility now resembled a battlefield, but Zara had learned to work with whatever tools remained functional. The aliens had kept her alive for one reason: her expertise in quantum communications technology. "Human slave," the mechanical translator crackled as Commander Thexkar entered the lab. The Vorthak towered over her at nearly 3 meters tall, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh artificial lights, multiple compound eyes fixed on her with cold calculation. "The transmission array requires recalibration. Your species may be primitive, but your understanding of subspace frequencies proves adequate." Zara nodded silently, having learned that defiance only brought pain. The neural collar around her neck hummed with electric potential, ready to deliver agony at the first sign of rebellion. She had watched too many other captives writhe in torment to risk it now. As Thexkar departed with his usual threats about productivity quotas, Zara turned back to her work. For months, she had been forced to enhance their communication systems, making their conquest of other worlds more efficient. Every improvement she made meant more species would fall under Vorthak control. The guilt ate at her like acid, but she had no choice. The quantum transmitter hummed to life under her skilled hands. She made the requested modifications, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces with practiced precision. But as she worked, a desperate plan began forming in her mind. The Vorthaks had made one critical error. They underestimated human ingenuity. While installing the new frequency modulators, Zara began implementing her own hidden modifications. Using techniques she had developed during her doctoral research, she embedded a secondary transmission protocol deep within the system's core programming. The aliens' scanners would never detect it. The signal would be transmitted on a quantum frequency so narrow that only the most sophisticated receivers could pick it up. Her heart raced as she worked. If discovered, the neural collar would be the least of her concerns. The Vorthaks had demonstrated their creativity with execution methods on previous occasions, but she could not continue being complicit in their conquest. Too many worlds had already fallen because of technology she had been forced to improve. The hidden protocol took shape slowly over several days. During routine maintenance sessions, Zara added small components to her secret system. A quantum encryption key here, a subspace relay there. Each addition was microscopic, designed to look like normal system optimization to casual observation. The message she finally embedded was simple, but heartbreaking. Coordinates of her location, basic information about Vorthak technology and weaknesses, and a desperate plea for rescue. She included everything she had learned about their military capabilities, their ship designs, and most importantly, their one critical vulnerability that even they did not realize they possessed. When the transmission finally went out, piggybacking on a routine communication burst to the Vorthak fleet, Zara felt a mixture of terror and hope. The signal would travel across hundreds of light years, seeking any human receiver capable of detecting such a narrow-band quantum transmission. She had no way of knowing if anyone would receive it, or if humanity even still existed as a free civilization. Days passed with no indication that her message had reached anyone. The Vorthaks continued their routine operations, oblivious to the hidden signal that had slipped past their sensors. Zara continued her forced labor, making cosmetic improvements to their systems while carefully avoiding any real enhancements that might aid their war effort. On the 14th day after her transmission, something changed. Commander Thexkar entered the laboratory with unusual agitation, his compound eyes twitching in patterns that indicated stress among his species. "Human slave," the translator barked. "Long-range sensors have detected anomalous readings in this sector. Your expertise with detection arrays is required immediately." Zara's pulse quickened, but she kept her expression neutral. "What kind of anomalous readings, Commander?" "Subspace distortions consistent with faster-than-light travel. Multiple contacts approaching from the direction of your homeworld. Explain this phenomenon." The words hit Zara like a physical blow. Multiple contacts from Earth's direction could only mean one thing. Her message had been received. Humanity was coming. She forced herself to appear confused. "I don't understand, Commander. My people lack faster-than-light capability. Perhaps it's a natural phenomenon or another spacefaring species." Thexkar's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Impossible. Our intelligence indicates your species has barely achieved interplanetary travel. Yet our sensors detect at least 50 vessels approaching at velocities that should be beyond your technological capabilities." 50 ships. Zara's mind reeled at the implications. Humanity had not only received her signal, but had mounted a massive rescue operation. Somehow, in the 18 months since her capture, her people had achieved what the Vorthax thought impossible. "Take me to the sensor station," she said, trying to keep the excitement from her voice. "If you want my help understanding these readings, I need to see the raw data." As they moved through the station's corridors, Zara noticed increased activity among the Vorthak crew. Soldiers moved with purpose, checking weapons and activating defensive systems. Whatever was approaching had them genuinely concerned. The sensor bay displayed a constellation of red dots advancing toward their position. Zara studied the formation patterns and velocity readings, her trained eye picking out details that filled her with growing amazement. The approaching fleet was moving in perfect coordination, their faster-than-light jumps timed with mathematical precision. "These readings are fascinating," she said, buying time to process what she was seeing. "The subspace signatures are unlike anything in known Vorthak databases. The propulsion technology appears to be quantum tunnel-based, with energy outputs that suggest highly advanced engineering." What she did not tell Thexkar was what she really saw in those sensor readings. The fleet approaching was not just technologically advanced, it was revolutionary. The energy signatures indicated propulsion systems that operated on principles she had only theorized about in her research. Humanity had not just achieved faster-than-light travel, they had leapfrogged centuries of expected technological development. "Estimated time to arrival?" Thexkar demanded. Zara ran quick calculations. "Approximately 6 hours at current velocity. Commander, if I may suggest, perhaps we should consider withdrawal. These vessels appear to be operating on technology levels that exceed current Vorthak capabilities." The alien commander's exoskeleton bristled with indignation. "The Vorthak Empire has conquered 12 star systems. No primitive species poses a threat to our superiority. Prepare the station's weapons systems for combat. Your technical expertise will ensure our victory." As alarms began blaring throughout the station, Zara felt a smile tugging at her lips. The Vorthax had no idea what they were about to face. Her people were coming, and from the sensor readings, they were coming with technology that would change everything. The next 6 hours would determine the fate of not just her own life, but potentially every enslaved species in Vorthak territory. Humanity was about to announce its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. Looking at the approaching fleet markers on the tactical display, Zara whispered a silent prayer of gratitude. Her desperate signal had been heard, and humanity had answered with a force that promised to reshape the balance of power among the stars. The first human vessel emerged from quantum tunnel space with a flash that momentarily overwhelmed every sensor on the Vorthak station. Zara watched from the command center where Commander Thexkar had dragged her, supposedly to help interpret the readings. What she saw defied every expectation she had about human technological capabilities. The ship was massive, easily 3 times the size of the largest Vorthak dreadnought, but that was not what took her breath away. The vessel seemed to shimmer and bend light around itself, creating visual distortions that hurt to look at directly. Energy patterns cascaded along its hull in waves of blue and gold, and weapon ports that looked like they belonged in a science fiction dream lined its flanks. "Impossible," Thexkar hissed through his translator. "No species achieves such technology without centuries of development. Your people were barely capable of chemical rockets 18 of your months ago." More ships emerged from quantum space, each one appearing with the same overwhelming energy discharge. The fleet took formation with mechanical precision, their movements coordinated in ways that suggested instantaneous communication across vast distances. Zara counted 63 vessels total, from small destroyer-class ships to massive carriers that dwarfed anything she had ever imagined humanity building. The tactical officer, a smaller Vorthak named Krikstal, chittered nervously as he analyzed the incoming data. "Commander, these vessels are not responding to our standard communication protocols. Their energy signatures are unprecedented. Our weapon systems are having difficulty establishing target locks due to some form of interference field." Zara bit back a laugh. The interference was not accidental. Her research into quantum field manipulation had always suggested that properly calibrated energy fields could disrupt targeting systems. Somehow, humanity had taken her theoretical work and turned it into practical ship defenses. "Attention, Vorthak Station," a voice suddenly boomed through every speaker on the command deck. The translation was perfect, delivered in fluent Vorthak dialect. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You are holding human personnel against their will. Release all prisoners immediately, or face the consequences." Chen. Zara's heart skipped a beat. That was her family name. Could it be possible? Commander Thexkar stepped forward, activating the communication array. "Human vessels, I am Commander Thexkar of the Vorthak 3rd Conquest Fleet. You have entered Imperial space without authorization. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." The response came swiftly and without emotion. "Commander, you have 30 seconds to begin releasing prisoners. We are not here to negotiate." 30 seconds? Thexkar's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Your arrogance will be your destruction. All weapons, target the largest vessel. Fire at will." The station's massive plasma cannons swiveled toward the human flagship and opened fire. Brilliant beams of superheated energy lanced across space, each one capable of vaporizing a city block. Zara watched in fascination as the attacks struck and vanished. The human ship absorbed the energy like it was drinking sunlight, its hull glowing brighter with each impact. "Energy absorption and redistribution systems," she whispered, amazement clear in her voice. "They're using the attacks to power their own systems." The human response was immediate and overwhelming. The flagship's main weapon system activated with a sound that penetrated through the station's hull, a deep harmonic vibration that seemed to resonate in Zara's bones. What emerged was not a projectile or energy beam, but something far more terrifying. A sphere of absolute darkness, roughly the size of a small asteroid, materialized next to one of the Vorthak defense platforms. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the platform began stretching, its metal hull elongating like taffy as it was pulled inexorably into the dark sphere. Within seconds, the entire defensive structure had been compressed into a point of infinite density and vanished. "Artificial gravity well," Zara breathed. "They've weaponized black hole technology." The remaining Vorthak defenses fell silent. Across the tactical display, weapon systems powered down as the reality of their situation became clear. The humans possessed technology that could casually delete matter from existence. Admiral Chen's voice returned, still calm and professional. Dr. Zara Chen, if you can hear this, please respond on quantum frequency 847.2. We've come to bring you home. Tears streamed down Zara's face as she realized the voice belonged to her younger sister Sarah, who had been a junior naval officer when Zara was captured. Now she commanded a fleet that wielded power beyond imagination. Thexkar turned to her, his compound eyes wide with what might have been fear. You knew they would come. I hoped, Zara replied, reaching for the communication console. But I never imagined this. Before she could respond to her sister, proximity alarms shrieked throughout the station. 3 more human ships had appeared directly alongside the station, having somehow bypassed every sensor and defense grid. Boarding pods launched immediately, their trajectory clearly aimed at the station's docking bays. Impossible! Krixtal screamed. Our shields are still active. How did they penetrate our defenses? Zara smiled grimly. Phase-shifting technology. They're not breaking through your shields. They're existing in a slightly different dimensional phase and stepping through them like they're not there. The sound of combat echoed through the station's corridors as human soldiers engaged Vorthak defenders. But these were not the prolonged firefights that characterized most boarding actions. The battles were brief, decisive, and moving rapidly toward the command center. 10 minutes later, the blast doors to the command deck exploded inward. Through the smoke stepped figures in armor that seemed to bend reality around them. The suits were sleek and form-fitting, but energy fields danced across their surfaces in patterns that suggested incredible defensive capabilities. The lead soldier removed her helmet, revealing a face that was older and scarred by command, but unmistakably familiar. "Hello, sister," Sarah Chen said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had seen too much war in too short a time. "Sorry we're late. Traffic was murder getting past the Centauri blockade." Zara laughed through her tears, a sound that seemed to break the tension in the room. How did you do all this? The technology, the ships. 18 months ago, we barely had fusion drives." Sarah's expression grew serious as she gestured to her soldiers who began securing the Vorthak prisoners. "Your signal didn't just contain coordinates and intelligence, Zara. It contained your research notes on quantum field manipulation and subspace communication. When our scientists analyzed your data, they realized you had unlocked principles that would revolutionize everything." She activated a holographic display from her wrist unit, showing technical schematics that made Zara's breath catch. "We built our entire fleet around your theories. Quantum tunnel drives, gravity manipulation, phase shift technology, energy absorption matrices. Every ship in this fleet is powered by principles you discovered." "But the time scale," Zara protested. "This level of development should take decades." "It would have," Sarah agreed, "if we had developed it alone. Your signal was received by every major human colony and research station simultaneously. Within hours, the greatest minds of our species were collaborating on a single project, building a fleet capable of challenging any force in the galaxy." Around them, human soldiers efficiently dismantled Vorthak equipment while treating the prisoners with surprising restraint. These were not conquerors seeking revenge, but liberators with a mission. "The United Earth Defense Fleet was born from your desperate signal," Sarah continued. 63 ships built in 18 months by combining the resources of 17 human colonies. Every vessel in this fleet is crewed by volunteers who dropped everything to answer your call for help. The neural collar around Zara's neck deactivated with a soft click as one of the soldiers applied a sophisticated device to its control mechanism. For the first time in 18 months, she was truly free. "But this is just the beginning," Sarah said, her eyes taking on a hard glint. "We've learned about Vorthak slave operations throughout this sector. Dozens of species enslaved, entire civilizations crushed under their expansion. that ends now. Through the command center's windows, Zara could see more human ships arriving, their quantum drives creating cascading light shows against the stars. The fleet was growing larger by the hour as reinforcements arrived from across human space. Humanity had not just come to rescue one of their own. They had come to announce their presence to the galaxy as a force for liberation. The age of Vorthak expansion was about to end, and a new chapter in galactic history was beginning. 6 months after her rescue, Dr. Zara Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Liberation, watching as the last Vorthak stronghold in the sector crumbled under the combined assault of the United Earth Defense Fleet and their new allies. The Catherian crystal ships glided alongside human vessels like living jewels, while Morganti bioships pulsed with organic energy patterns that complemented the cold precision of human technology. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. What began as a rescue mission had evolved into something far greater, a galactic coalition of liberated species working together to dismantle the Vorthak Empire piece by piece. Every world freed from alien oppression brought new allies, new technologies, and new perspectives to their growing alliance. "Final bombardment complete," reported Commander Torres from the tactical station. "Vorthak Fortress 7 is neutralized. All slave compounds have been secured, and liberation teams are beginning prisoner evacuation." Admiral Sarah Chen nodded from the captain's chair, her expression showing the weight of command that had aged her beyond her years. "Excellent work. That makes 14 Vorthak strongholds liberated in this sector alone. How many freed prisoners are we looking at?" "Preliminary count shows approximately 50,000 beings from 12 different species," Torres replied. "Medical teams report most are in surprisingly good condition considering the circumstances. The Vorthaks apparently learned from their mistakes after our early raids." Zara smiled at that. The first liberation missions had been messy affairs, with the aliens often attempting to eliminate evidence of their slave operations rather than allow captures. But as human tactics evolved, so did Vorthak desperation. Now they were more concerned with escape than covering their tracks. "Dr. Chen," called Lieutenant Kim from the communications station, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime. They're requesting your presence for tomorrow's emergency session." The Galactic Council. 6 months ago, Zara had never imagined such an organization existed. Now she was being invited to address the governing body of 47 spacefaring civilizations as they debated humanity's application for membership. The irony was not lost on her that the same research that had made her valuable to the Vorthaks was now making her essential to galactic diplomacy. "Tell them I'll attend," she replied. "But remind them that humanity's membership application comes with non-negotiable conditions regarding slavery and forced labor." Admiral Chen turned in her chair, raising an eyebrow at her sister. "Still making demands of ancient galactic powers? Some things never change." "Someone has to," Zara shrugged. "Half these council species knew about Vorthak slave operations and did nothing because they were not directly affected. That kind of selective blindness enabled everything we've had to fix." The truth was more complicated than moral outrage, and everyone on the bridge understood it. The Galactic Council operated on principles of non-interference that had maintained peace for centuries, but had also allowed aggressive species like the Vorthaks to expand unchecked as long as they avoided certain protected systems. Humanity's approach of active liberation had disrupted a delicate balance that many species found uncomfortable. "Incoming transmission from Kepler Station," Lieutenant Kim announced. "Dr. Meridian wants to discuss the latest test results from the quantum communication array." Dr. Elena Meridian had been Zara's research partner before the capture and was now leading the expanded quantum communication project that was revolutionizing galactic infrastructure. The technology that had enabled Zara's desperate signal was being adapted to create instantaneous communication networks spanning thousands of light years. "Put her through," Zara requested, moving to a private communication alcove. Elena's hologram materialized, her face showing the exhaustion of someone who had been working around the clock for months. "Zara, the test results exceeded every projection. The new relay network can handle communication traffic for the entire liberated sector simultaneously, with zero lag time across distances that used to require weeks for message delivery." "That's incredible," Zara replied. "How are the Council species responding to the technology sharing offers?" "Mixed reactions. The Altarians are enthusiastic and want to integrate the system into their exploration fleets. The Centaurans are being cautious, as usual, but the real surprise is the Vorthax." Zara blinked in confusion. "What about them?" "The surrender negotiations have taken an unexpected turn. They're offering to share their conquest databases, complete records of every species they've encountered and enslaved over the past 2 centuries. In exchange, they want access to our communication technology for their remaining territories." The implications hit Zara like a physical blow. Complete records of Vorthak conquests would reveal the locations of potentially hundreds of enslaved worlds that the Liberation Fleet had not yet discovered. But it would also mean working with their former captors, sharing advanced human technology with the species that had caused so much suffering. "What's Admiral Chen's position on this?" she asked. "Sarah wants your opinion before making any decisions. The tactical advantages are obvious, but the moral complexities are—" Elena paused. "Well, they're significant." Through the communication alcove's windows, Zara could see the rescued prisoners being transferred to hospital ships. Beings from dozens of species, many of whom had been enslaved for generations, finally returning to freedom because humanity had refused to accept the galactic status quo. How many more worlds remained in Vorthak hands simply because no one knew where to look? "Tell Sarah I recommend accepting the deal," Zara said finally, "but with conditions. The Vorthax provide the databases first, as proof of good faith. They release all remaining prisoners immediately, not gradually over time, and they submit to ongoing monitoring by Joint Human Council inspection teams." Elena nodded. "Those are reasonable terms. The diplomatic team thinks the Vorthax are desperate enough to agree to almost anything at this point. Their empire has lost nearly 60% of its territory in 6 months. After ending the communication, Zara returned to the main bridge where Admiral Chen was reviewing tactical displays with her senior staff. The Liberation Fleet had grown to nearly 300 ships, with vessels from 8 different species working under unified command. Human quantum drives provided the speed and coordination, while alien weapons and defensive systems added capabilities that pure human technology could not match. "Decision made on the Vorthak proposal?" Sarah asked without looking up from her displays. "Accept it, but with the conditions Elena mentioned. We need those databases, Sarah. There could be entire species out there that we do not even know exist yet." "Agreed. I'll have the diplomatic team draw up the terms." Sarah finally looked up, her expression serious. "Zara, there's something else we need to discuss. The council session tomorrow is not just about our membership application. Intelligence reports suggest several member species are planning to propose restrictions on human expansion and liberation operations. The news was not entirely unexpected. Humanity's rapid technological advancement and aggressive liberation campaigns had disrupted galactic power structures that had remained stable for centuries. Some species saw humans as potential saviors, while others viewed them as dangerous upstarts who needed to be controlled. "What kind of restrictions?" Zara asked. "Limits on military fleet sizes, mandatory approval for liberation operations, technology sharing requirements. Essentially, they want to bring human expansion under council oversight before we become too powerful to control." Zara laughed grimly. 6 months ago, I was a prisoner begging for rescue. Now they're worried about human expansion threatening galactic stability. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. The question is how we respond, Sarah continued. We could accept council oversight in exchange for official membership and all the benefits that brings, or we could reject their authority and continue operating independently. Is there a third option? Sarah smiled, an expression that held no warmth. Actually, yes. We propose our own alternative to the current council structure, a galactic confederation based on active cooperation rather than passive non-interference. Species that want to participate in liberation operations and technology sharing join the confederation. Those that prefer the old system can maintain their council membership. The idea was audacious and would certainly cause massive political upheaval among established galactic powers. But it also offered something the current system could not, a path forward for species that wanted to actively shape galactic civilization rather than simply maintain the status quo. That would split the galaxy into competing power blocks, Zara observed. Maybe that's what the galaxy needs, Sarah replied. The current system enabled the Vorthax and countless other injustices because no one wanted to take responsibility for difficult decisions. If some species want to continue that approach, they're welcome to it, but we're offering an alternative for those ready to do better. As the Liberation prepared to jump to Nexus Prime for the council session, Zara reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. Her desperate signal had saved not just her own life, but had catalyzed a transformation that was reshaping galactic civilization. The timid species that had barely achieved interstellar travel was now proposing to restructure the fundamental organization of the galaxy. Tomorrow's council session would determine whether humanity's vision of active cooperation and mutual aid could coexist with traditional non-interference policies, or whether the galaxy would face the first major political schism in its recorded history. Either way, the age of passive acceptance was ending. Humanity had answered one person's cry for help with unmatched courage, and that answer was reverberating across the stars in ways that would reshape the galaxy for generations to come.